Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. This week we've got another Commander's Guild deck tech. This is our 117th deck and it's titled Azorius Zombies. And if you haven't seen the show before, what we are doing is randomly selecting a card from scryfall.com, working with a budget of $100 or less, and building a commander deck for Magic the Gathering around a theme of the chosen card. Now, really quickly, I do apologize if my voice is a little bit scratchy. I live on the East Coast, and as you may know, we have a bit of a smoke storm going on, so my voice is a little bit scratchier than normal. Also doesn't help that I also got sick earlier this week, so it's just a bunch of stuff going on, but hopefully the voice isn't too distracting for you and we can still get through this video. So if you hear anything odd, it's probably that. But with that out of the way, let's take a look at some of the ways that you can help support this channel if that's something you're interested in doing. So first up, of course, you can always find us over on Twitter, on Reddit. Send us an email. That's at 13POYNZ, u/POYNZ13, and dungeonlearnersguide@gmail.com. Those are all great ways to reach out if you ever have any questions, you just want to chat, maybe you want to suggest a card that you would like to see turned into a deck for this channel. Those are all great ways to do it, and I'm always happy to respond as much as I can. However, if you're looking for a more direct way to help actually support the channel, you can find us over on Patreon, patreon.com/dungeonlearnersguide, where you could join our amazing patrons listed below, such as William Swiftfoot, Doodle, Calvin Schmidt, Eric Way, Jeff Winger, and Jeffrey Boos. So to the 6 of you all, thank you so much. And if you would like to see your name listed below with them, you can, of course, head on over to Patreon, where you'll get access to a ton of amazing things, like the deck techs a week early. You'll get access to a Discord where we brew up the decks and actually play the games. So if you've ever wanted to be in a game on this channel, that is the first place I look for some of the games. And you'll also get a random card sent to you every single month as a thank you for all of your support. I'm currently working on getting this month's, or I suppose I should say last month's, cards sent out to all of our patrons. I try to send them out at the end of the month, but again, because of getting sick and all of that, I'm a little bit slow. So to those of you who are expecting cards, I apologize that it's taking so long. I will get them out soon, I promise. But with all of that out of the way, I suppose we should jump into our actual deck tech. And so we've got to talk about our random card of the week, which in this case is a random card. Sometimes we do suggested cards, but this one was completely random, and it is In Oketra's Name. So this is a card that kind of slipped under my radar, and I played a lot of Amonkhet, but it is a 1 and a white instant that says zombies you control get +2/+1 until the end of turn, and other creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn. I wasn't really sure where this card came from initially. Like, what are we going to do with it? What is the plan here? Obviously, we're probably going to do something with zombies, but then I thought, how could we possibly make this even harder? What can we do to make zombies, a very powerful group of creatures, not necessarily super strong? And I think the best answer we came up with comes with our commander, because we are playing an Azorius deck. We are not playing a black deck, which means that we are playing zombies without their primary color. And luckily, we do have a lot of Amonkhet zombies, which are white, and a lot of Innistrad zombies, which are blue, so we are still able to make this work. But it is going to be very tricky because we're missing out on a lot of the Lord effects, stuff that give +1/+1. We're missing out on a lot of things that give things like Menace and Death Touch, things that let us draw cards for our zombies. So we had to find a way to make sure that our zombies could do exactly what we want to do. But we also had to find a commander that cared about zombies in just the Azorius colors. And luckily, we stumbled across Tobias Doomed Conqueror, which is 2 white-blue for a legendary creature, human soldier. He's a 3/2, he's got flash, and when Tobias dies, for each non-token creature you controlled that died this turn, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So he can essentially save our board from a massive board wipe and give us replacement zombies in return. So he's not technically a zombie commander, but he's not a zombie commander at the same time. But with that little explanation out of the way, let's take a look at some of our themes for the deck and see kind of what we were able to do. So first up, as you've probably already guessed with my short little ramble, this is a zombie deck. So we are playing as many zombies as possible, cards that create zombies, cards that care about zombie tokens, cards that somehow turn themselves into zombies, which we will get to later. But a great example of this is Mummy Paramount, which is 1 and a white for a 2/2 zombie. Whenever another zombie enters the battlefield under your control, Mummy Paramount gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. By being able to fill up our board with a ton of zombies, we can make sure Mummy Paramount is a threat on its own, but we also have a huge board to represent a threat as well. Kind of showcasing that go wide style that zombies are very good at while adding a unique go tall strategy on top of it. Our next theme, though, is a little bit different, but still plays into what mummies are good at, and that is going to be Eternalize and Embalm. So I mentioned earlier that cards could turn into zombies, so we do have quite a few cards that maybe are a human or a cleric, like Vizier of the Anointed, and when we activate their Eternalize or Embalm abilities, they actually turn into zombies. And that's going to be incredibly important for what we're trying to do, because no matter what our creatures start as, they're going to eventually end up as zombies. So Vizier of the Anointed, honestly kind of a bit of an all-star, could have gone into the important and key cards section of the video, but I wanted to put it here to highlight the overall strategy as well. So Vizier of the Anointed, 3 and a blue for a 2/4 human cleric. When Vizier of the Anointed enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with Eternalize or Embalm, put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. Whenever you activate an Eternalize or Embalm ability, draw a card. So if you don't know what Eternalize and Embalm are, Embalm is that there's an ability you pay whatever mana it says, and then you exile the card from your graveyard and create a copy of it that is a token, except it's a white mummy, which is a zombie, in addition to its other types. And then on the other hand, if we have Eternalize, it does the exact same thing, except it becomes a black zombie, and it's a 4/4. It doesn't keep the stats of the creature that's exiled, it just becomes a 4/4. But either way, the most important part of this is that they both become zombies. So once again, leaning more into the zombie strategy. And then finally, we have our last theme of the deck, and this is going to be tokens. Because we're focusing on creating zombies, and honestly a lot of our zombies are going to be 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, we want to have a way to make sure that we are activating the best that we can from those creatures. So that's where we get Aven Wind Guide, which is 2, a white and a blue for a 2/3 bird warrior, flying, vigilance. Creature tokens you control have flying and vigilance, and it has Embalm for 6. So again, if we embalm it for 6 out of our graveyard, we exile it, make a copy of it, except it's a white zombie bird warrior, and now we have a zombie. We also have a token. That token has flying and vigilance and gives our other tokens flying and vigilance. And that's going to become incredibly powerful because as we get more and more zombie tokens, them having flying means that we can get around blockers, and them having vigilance means we can continue to block. So that is exactly what we want to be doing. So that is our general collection of themes that we're trying to focus on. We want zombies, we want Eternalize and Embalm creatures, and we want tokens. And well, I should also mention this too. It's also important that Embalm and Eternalize create tokens, which then Aven Wind Guide cares about as well. Creature tokens you control have flying and vigilance also includes our Eternalize and Embalm. If you can't tell, I am very excited about this deck. I love the themes here. I love that we were able to build a zombie deck without using black, because black is like 90% of all the zombies in Magic or something like that. So I'm very excited, but I will stop my rambling and we can move on to our key cards section of this deck tech. These are the cards that are not necessarily the win conditions for the deck, but they are very important. They really help us do what we want to be doing and kind of push us toward an eventual win, at least hopefully. So our first key card is going to be Kindred Discovery. We need to make sure that we are drawing a bunch of cards, because if we're being perfectly honest, black zombies are going to have a lot more card draw than our Azorius Zombies, which sounds kind of backwards because we are playing blue. So we need to make sure that we can actually keep up with what zombies could normally do, and Kindred Discovery is a great way to do that because it is 3 blue for an enchantment. As Kindred Discovery enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. It is very important that this does not say non-token creature. So if we make, say, 5 zombies with something like Tobias, then we draw 5 cards. If we attack with those 5 zombies, we draw 5 more cards. So Kindred Discovery is really good at refilling our hand when we want to go wide with our creatures. However, there is a bit of a cautionary tale here because it does say draw a card, not you may draw a card. So if we have too many zombies or we have just used this too many times, we could draw our deck. There's no way to stop that. It just happens. So it is something to be aware of, that if you have too many zombies or maybe more zombies than there are cards remaining in your library, don't attack with them or somehow get rid of Kindred Discovery, because you will lose the game to the draw trigger. I've seen that happen before. You don't want it to happen to you. But that leads us then to our second key card, which is going to be God Eternal Oketra. And God Eternal Oketra is 3 white for a 3/6 zombie god. She has double strike, and whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance. And when God Eternal Oketra dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library third from the top. That second ability is not going to be super relevant. It is nice that she's not going to immediately die outright or get exiled outright, but it's probably not going to come into play very often, at least not as much as the next ability will, or I guess the first ability. I don't know. But anyway, whenever you cast a creature spell, you make a 4/4 zombie is incredibly powerful in this deck, because not only are they zombies, they are 4/4 zombies with vigilance. Those are great at attacking, they're great at blocking, and if we can fill up a board with a ton of 4/4 zombies, then we cast something like In Oketra's Name, we give them all +2/+1, we're swinging in with a bunch of 6/5s that all have vigilance, they can all still block. That can win us the game right out. So God Eternal Oketra is an amazing token maker, and honestly probably the best token maker we have in the entire deck. So I think she definitely deserves a spot in our key cards section. And finally, we come to our last key card of the deck, and that is Cleaver Scob. And Cleaver Scob is 3 and a blue for a 2/4 zombie horror. And it has pay 3, tap, sacrifice another zombie, create 2 tokens that are copies of the sacrificed creature. Now, again, just like Kindred Discovery, it's very important that this doesn't say non-token. So if we have, say, a 4/4 zombie warrior creature token with vigilance from God Eternal Oketra, we can pay 3, tap, sacrifice that 4/4 with Cleaver Scob, and make 2 4/4s with vigilance. That's obviously not the best that we want to be doing, but it is still going to be very powerful when we have zombies with enter the battlefield effects. We have zombies that care about dying. We have zombies that are maybe even bigger than 4/4s. So having Cleaver Scob to essentially double up on any one of our zombies, provided they're not legendary, is incredibly powerful and is something that can really help us grind out a victory in the late game if we're not able to draw as many cards, or maybe we're top decking, or maybe, we just keep hitting lands, that kind of stuff. So Cleaver Scob, super powerful, and really just great all around at what it does. So those are our key cards for the week. And the next thing we got to do is talk about some cool interactions. And these are going to be the cards that really synergize together. And while they may not be the win conditions of the deck, kind of like our key cards, they're still something that can synergize well and kind of give us the value that we may need to eventually win the game. So the first cool interaction that I want to talk about is between Geralf, Stitcher Visionary, and God Eternal Kefnet. So Geralf is 2 and a blue for a 1/4 human wizard. Zombies you control have flying, and pay blue, tap, sacrifice another non-token creature, create an XX blue zombie creature token, where X is the sacrificed creature's toughness. And then God Eternal Kefnet is 2 blue for a 4/5 zombie god. It's got flying. You may reveal the first card you draw each turn as you draw it. Whenever you reveal an instant or sorcery card this way, copy that card. You may cast the copy, and the copy costs 2 less to cast. Then, just like God Eternal Oketra, when God Eternal Kefnet dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library third from the top. Now, originally, looking at these two, it doesn't seem like they have a lot going on together, but because we can actually sacrifice Kefnet and then put him back into our library, means that we can use Geralf to sacrifice Kefnet, make a 5/5 zombie that has flying because it's now a token. Then we put Kefnet back into our library, In 3 turns, we draw it, and we can do it again. So it's not a super powerful combo, but it is very effective to just keep churning out 5/5 zombies, or if we use Oketra, 6/6 zombies. And that way, no matter what we're doing, we always have something going on with our board. And that's really one of the big key pieces of this deck, is that we want to make sure we always have something going on. Because we don't have the black zombies, we don't have a lot of the aggressive strategies. We don't have a lot of the super strong, powerful abilities. So we need to make sure that we're always adding to the board. And this is a great way to always be adding to the board. But that is only cool interaction number 1. We still have another one to talk about. And this one is going to be Laboratory Drudge, and in this case, Sunscourge Champion. But if we're being perfectly honest, this could be any Eternalize or Embalm creature. So, Laboratory Drudge is 3 and a blue for a 3/4 zombie horror. At the beginning of each end step, draw a card if you've cast a spell from a graveyard or activated an ability of a card in a graveyard this turn. Then, Sunscourge Champion, 2 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, you gain life equal to its power. And Eternalize 2 white, discard a card. So originally it's a 2/3. When you internalize it, it's a 4/4. So like I said, this could be any Eternalize or Embalm creature. The really important part here is that we draw a card from that ability. So if we activate Sunscourge Champion's Eternalize, yeah, we've got to discard a card, but we're also going to be drawing a card because of Laboratory Drudge. And really, this is going to be the bulk of our zombie creating abilities, so we need to make sure that we're replacing any zombies that we use. But the really nice thing with this is that we can cast Sunscourge Champion for its 2 and a white cost, make a 2/3 human wizard. Then when it dies, maybe we sacrifice it to one of our sacrifice outlets, and then all of a sudden, we are making more zombies because we can then Eternalize it, draw a card, keep going. And again, that's part of the value that we've kind of been talking about this whole time. We always want to have something to do. And the best way to do that is to use the cards in our graveyard and to draw more cards to play. So Laboratory Drudge, Sunscourge Champion, really powerful cards. Really, again, any Eternalize or Embalm creature is super strong in this deck, but I did want to highlight these cards in particular. So with that being said, let's get to the final part of this deck tech, which is going to be the price. And this week, the price came in at $60.30. You might be surprised to learn that there are not a lot of expensive white and or blue zombie creatures. So the most expensive card in this deck is actually Necroduality. And Necroduality, while not a zombie creature, it does care about zombies. It is 3 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever a non-token zombie enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. So if we cast a Laboratory Drudge, we now get 2 Laboratory Drudges. And that can be incredibly powerful because that means we're doubling up on not only our creatures in terms of attacking and blocking, but we're doubling up on abilities, we're doubling up on enter the battlefield effects. With Laboratory Drudge in particular, we're doubling up on card draw, maybe even removal, things like that. So Necroduality gives us the free ability, well, free once it's on the battlefield. It costs 4 to get into play, but once it's in play, the free ability to just double every single zombie we play, not counting our tokens, which is a shame because we do have a lot of tokens, but still very strong nonetheless. However, if you are looking to trim the price of the deck just a little bit, you can cut this card and actually drop the price down to below $50, which makes it much more manageable and honestly only half of our budget for the entire deck. So that is something that you could definitely do if you needed to. But if you're looking to actually increase the price of the deck, I do have a suggestion for you there as well. And this week, the card I would recommend putting in if you have a little bit of extra budget space for it is Mondrak Glory Dominus. So we've talked a little bit about how we want to make a ton of tokens, especially the Eternalize and Embalm tokens, so we may as well play something that doubles up those tokens. And that's exactly what Mondrak does, because for 2 white, we get a 4/4 legendary creature Phyrexian Horror. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. Then we could also pay 1 and 2 Phyrexian white to sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures and give an indestructible counter to Mondrak. I don't expect us to use that last ability too often, but it is nice to have just in case we need it. The real reason it would be in here is because we want to double the tokens we make. And that does work with our eternalized creatures. So if we exile something from our graveyard, copy it, make a token of it, we get 2 of the exact same token, which can be very, very powerful because there's a lot of really strong eternalized creatures. On the other hand, the card that you might want to take out if you're putting in Mondrak is Unconventional Tactics. And Unconventional Tactics is 2 and a white for a sorcery. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains flying until the end of turn. Then, whenever a zombie enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay a white. If you do, return it from your graveyard to your hand. Now, honestly, this is just in here because there's not a ton of white and blue cards that care about zombies, and I thought it was kind of funny. But it's not that great of a card, unfortunately. 3 mana to give something +3/+3 and flying when we're trying to go wide is not super powerful. And the ability to return it to your hand is nice, but it's probably not going to come into play as often as you would expect. So, a fun card, definitely an entertaining card, but I don't think it nearly stacks up when compared to Mondrak. So that is the entirety of our deck tech this week. Obviously, we've talked about this deck a lot. The last thing we got to do is see how it performs in a game. So we are going to play against 3 separate opponents this week, and we're going to find out just how strong Azorius Zombies can be. And this week, we are joined by Shawn, playing Zndrsplt and Okon, Jalira, Master Polymorphist, played by Cole, and Atraxa, Grand Unifier, played by Bilal. So starting off with Zndrsplt and Okon, this is a coin-flipping deck. Shawn wants to flip a ton of coins and then make Okon super big, then use Zndrsplt to draw a ton of cards. I imagine there's a lot of shenanigans going on with coin flipping. I'm not 100% sure what those shenanigans may be, but I suppose at the end of the day, there's a 50-50 shot that he gets what he wants, so I don't think I'm super concerned about this deck, although I am prepared to be surprised, because I know drawing cards and doubling power can be very powerful, and who knows, maybe he'll get super lucky. Next up, we have Cole and his Jalira deck. This is exactly what it looks like on the cover. This is just a polymorph deck with some big mono blue creatures, and he wants to use some small token generating abilities so that way he can never hit a small blue creature. And then, of course, just start putting bombs into play one after another, maybe like some Krakens, Leviathans, Serpents, things like that. So I'm very excited for this deck. We played a polymorph deck a little while back. If you're interested, go check that out. But I think it's going to be super sweet to play against Jalira. And then finally, we have Bilal playing Atraxa. As far as I know, Atraxa is just kind of a good stuff commander. There's obviously only missing the color of red. It means that you can play pretty much anything you want. And Atraxa coming into play, it just means you draw a ton of cards. So I am fully prepared to just kind of be overwhelmed by a bunch of value and card draw and a bunch of creatures and enchantments and artifacts and everything else that Atraxa could possibly get. And knowing Bilal, I'm sure there are some infinite combos in there as well. So overall, I think the deck that I'm probably the most concerned about is Atraxa going into this game, but I think it's going to be fun no matter what. So please let me know in the comments which opponent you think has the most difficult deck for us to fight against. But I hope you enjoy it. I'm sure I will, and I will talk to you all after the game. At the start of the game, Shawn goes first, followed by Cole, Bilal, and then myself. On Shawn's first turn, he plays a Mystic Sanctuary tapped. Cole plays an island. Bilal plays a Polluted Mire, sacrificing it to search his library for a Zaggoth Triumph, putting it into play tapped. I play a Plains and cast Soul Ring. Shawn plays a Command Tower and casts Arcane Signet, then also casts Ponder, looking at the top 3 cards of his library, putting them back in any order, then drawing a card. Cole plays an island. Bilal plays a Port Town, revealing a Canopy Vista so that it comes into play untapped, then casts Sakura Tribe Elder. I play a Desert of the True, and also cast Mummy Paramount, which gets +1/+1 till the end of turn whenever a zombie enters under my control. Shawn plays a Frostboil Snarl, revealing a mountain so it comes into play untapped, then cast Commander Sphere and cast Krark's Thumb, letting him flip 2 coins whenever he would flip a coin and choose which of the 2 results to keep. Then, at the end of turn, Cole casts Startle, giving Sakura Tribe Elder -2/-0 till the end of turn, making a 2/2 zombie token with Decayed and drawing a card. Then on his turn, he plays an island and attacks Shawn for 2 with his zombie, sacrificing it at the end of combat due to Decayed. Bilal plays a swamp. I play a Desert of the Mindful and cast Unconventional Tactics, giving Mummy Paramount +3/+3 and flying until the end of turn, allowing me to attack Bilal for 5. Shawn plays a mountain and casts his commander Okan, Eye of Chaos, letting him flip coins when he moves to combat until he loses a flip, and also doubling Okan's power and toughness each time he correctly calls a coin flip. He then casts Aqueous Form, enchanting Okan, making him unblockable and letting him scry 1 whenever he attacks. Cole plays an island and casts his commander Jalira, Master Polymorphist, letting him activate her to sacrifice a creature and reveal cards from the top of his library until he hits a non-legendary creature, putting it into play. At the end of turn, Bilal sacrifices Sakura Tribe Elder, searching his library for a basic land and putting it into play tapped. Then on Bilal's turn, he plays a Hinterland Harbor and casts Dryad of the Elysian Grove, letting him play an additional land on each of his turns, and also making his lands every basic land type, and then he plays a Reliquary Tower, gaining no maximum hand size. On my turn, I play a High Market and cast Vizier of the Anointed, searching my library for a creature with Eternalize or Embalm, putting it into my graveyard. This lets me get Champion of Wits, and then I pass. Shawn casts his other commander Zendersplit, Eye of Wisdom, letting him flip coins when he goes to combat until he loses a flip, and also letting him draw a card whenever he correctly calls a coin flip. He then moves to combat, flipping coins for both of his commanders and winning a total of 4 coin flips, drawing 4 cards, making Okan a 48/48, and attacking me with an unblockable Okan for 48 commander damage, knocking me out of the game. Then in the second main phase, he also cast Thud, sacrificing Okan and doing 48 damage to Bilal, knocking him out of the game as well. Finally, he plays an island and passes. On Cole's turn, he also plays an island and passes. Shawn plays a mountain and recasts Okan, but in response, Cole casts Overwhelming Intellect, countering Okan and drawing a card equal to its mana value, which is 5. Once that's resolved, Shawn moves to combat, not winning any coin flips with Zendersplit. On Cole's turn, he casts Lazotep Plating, amassing 1 and giving himself and his permanents hexproof until the end of turn. After that, he activates Jalira, sacrificing the newly made army and revealing cards from the top of his library until he reveals Astral Dragon, putting it into play and creating 2 copies of Commander Sphere, except they're also 3/3 dragons. Shawn casts Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, activating his +1 ability to mill Cole for 2 and drawing himself a card. Then he casts Triskaidekaphile, allowing him to win in his upkeep if he has exactly 13 cards in his hand, and he also casts Mog Assassin, which can tap to destroy a creature of Shawn's choice if he wins a coin flip, or destroy a creature of an opponent's choice if he loses the coin flip. He then moves to combat, not winning any coin flips with Zendersplit. On Cole's turn, he plays an island and attacks Shawn for 4 and Jace for 6, killing the Planeswalker. Then in his second main phase, Cole activates Jalira, sacrificing a dragon token and putting Hullbreaker Horror into play, which lets him return a spell or permanent to its owner's hand whenever he casts a spell. Once that's resolved, he casts a Wayfarer's Bauble, returning Zendersplit to Shawn's hand. On Shawn's turn, he recasts his commander Zendersplit, then activates Mog Assassin, winning the coin flip and destroying Hullbreaker Horror and drawing a card thanks to Zendersplit. After that, Shawn casts Impulsive Maneuvers, flipping a coin whenever a creature attacks, doubling its power if he wins and preventing its damage if he loses. Then, when he goes to combat, he wins 1 coin flip, drawing a card. At the end of turn, Cole sacrifices his Wayfarer's Bauble, searching his library for a basic land and putting it into play tapped. On Cole's turn, he attacks Shawn for 7, triggering Impulsive Maneuvers, with Shawn losing both flips, which doubles the power of Cole's creatures, so Shawn takes 14 total damage instead. Then, in his second main phase, Cole activates Jalira, sacrificing the dragon token and putting Guile into play, allowing him to cast any spell he counters without paying its mana cost. On Shawn's turn, he casts Frenetic Ifrit, letting him flip a coin and phase out the Ifrit if he wins or sacrifice it if he loses. Once that's resolved, he casts Thassa's Oracle, and with the Oracle's trigger on the stack, he's able to infinitely activate the Ifrit's ability, flipping an infinite amount of coins and drawing a card for each flip he wins. Then, once his library is empty, he's able to resolve the Thassa's Oracle trigger, having fewer cards in his library than his devotion to blue, and winning Shawn the game. Now, notably, he does have to find a kill spell to destroy his own commander at some point in this combo, but he definitely has the mana to do so, so he's able to destroy Zundersplit, not decking himself out, and of course, winning Shawn the game. Alright, so that was a sweet game, definitely a very short game. Even the unedited version of this game was only about 30 minutes long. Shawn definitely knocked us out very, very quickly once that game got going. Him hitting 4 in a row off of Oketra is actually very impressive. Not necessarily super impressive considering that there's a Krark's Thumb in play, but still pretty impressive to get 4 in a row and be able to knock 2 people out, both on, well, what was his turn 5, but our turn 4. Very, very cool to see. And then Cole really tried his best to stop him, and I think that he got close a couple of times, and if he'd been able to deal with the Frenetic Ifrit or the Thassa's Oracle or something like that, then he could have won the game, I think, if he had kept just kind of swinging, but it wasn't quite in his wheelhouse to get that done, unfortunately. Bilal really didn't get to show off what Atraxa could do. He ramped a little bit, and that was about it, unfortunately. And I didn't think I would ever be saying this, but hopefully that means we'll see Atraxa back in the future, because I would like to see what she can do. And then, of course, like I mentioned already, Shawn, very powerful stuff. He did mention in the game that he was going to flip coins with Frenetic Ifrit an infinite number of times, and I do want to just very quickly warn everybody, don't actually do that and then just let the game play out, because you will lose the game with Thassa's Oracle because you have to wait for the trigger to resolve. So what Shawn did is he flipped coins an infinite number of times, drew an infinite number of cards with Zundersplit, but once he had drawn his entire deck, he had removal spells in there that he could point at his own commander once he had drawn his entire deck to make sure that he doesn't actually draw too many cards and lose the game, letting him win with Thassa's Oracle. So that is something to be aware of. It's not as simple as flip coins win. You do still have a couple of game actions to take, but overall a very cool game. I think the decks that were able to show off what they can do were very, very sweet. Please let me know in the comments what deck you thought was the most impressive. Let me know if there's anything you think we could add to our own deck to make it a little bit better, or maybe just improve it in general. I'm very interested to know what you have to say. And as always, if you have any suggestions for cards that you would like to see turned into decks for this channel in the future, please do let me know. I will do my best to get to all of them, but the only way I can unfortunately guarantee to get to your suggestion is if you join the Patreon, patreon.com/dungeonlearnersguide. And of course, if you have suggestions, put them there. I will get to those, but I will still try to get to everybody else's as well. So thank you all so much for watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.